the Vietnam War, a chapter in American history etched in pain, controversy, and courage. It was a conflict that left an indelible mark on millions of lives, both in Southeast Asia and on the home front. The jungles of Vietnam became a battleground for ideologies, a testament to the human cost of Cold War tensions. This essay delves into the heart of this tumultuous period, exploring its complexities from multiple perspectives. We will journey through key battles and pivotal decisions, examining the motivations and actions of the United States, the Vietnamese people, and the international community. This is not just a recollection of events, but an exploration of their profound and lasting impacts. Join us as we unravel the threads of this complex conflict, giving voice to the stories of those who experienced its horrors and emerged forever changed. The seeds of the Vietnam War were sown in the ashes of French colonialism. Ho Chi Minh, a charismatic revolutionary leader, sought independence for Vietnam. The U.S., fearing the spread of communism, gradually increased its involvement. President Eisenhower's domino theory, which posited that the fall of one Southeast Asian nation to communism would topple others, fueled American intervention. The U.S. provided military aid to South Vietnam, drawing itself deeper into the conflict. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963 and the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964, which remained shrouded in controversy, provided further impetus for escalation. By 1965, U.S. combat troops were deployed to Vietnam, marking a turning point in the war. As the war dragged on, American society became increasingly polarized. Support for the war waned as casualties mounted and the conflict's purpose grew murkier. The anti-war movement gained momentum on college campuses and in cities across the nation. Students, activists, and artists used their voices and platforms to protest the war, challenging the government's narrative. The war exposed deep divisions within American society, highlighting issues of race, class, and the limits of government power. The draft, which disproportionately affected working-class and minority communities, fueled resentment and fueled the anti-war movement. The Vietnam War was not just fought on battlefields, it was also waged in the hearts and minds of the American people, leaving lasting scars on the nation's conscience. Section 4. The Tet Offensive, a turning point. Launched by North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces in early 1968, the Tet Offensive marked a significant turning point in the war. The coordinated attacks on South Vietnamese and U.S. targets, including the U.S. Embassy in Saigon, shocked the American public. While the offensive was militarily a failure for the Communists, it dealt a significant blow to American morale. It exposed the credibility gap between the Johnson administration's optimistic assessments of the war and the harsh reality on the ground. The Tet Offensive fueled growing public disillusionment with the war, leading President Lyndon B. Johnson to announce that he would not seek re-election. The war had become increasingly unpopular, and the nation yearned for an end to the bloodshed. This offensive shattered the illusion of American invincibility and cast a long shadow over the remainder of the war. Section 5. Vietnamization and Withdrawal, a slow retreat from turmoil. President Richard Nixon, elected in 1968 on a platform of peace with honor, implemented a policy of Vietnamization. This strategy aimed to gradually withdraw U.S. troops while strengthening South Vietnamese forces to assume responsibility for the fight. Nixon's policy was partly driven by domestic pressure to end the war. The anti-war movement continued to gain strength, and the nation was weary of the protracted conflict. However, the withdrawal process was slow and agonizing. The U.S. continued to conduct bombing campaigns in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, expanding the war's geographic scope and further destabilizing the region. The Paris Peace Accords, signed in 1973, provided a framework for a ceasefire and the withdrawal of U.S. troops. However, the accords proved fragile. North Vietnamese forces continued their advance, and Saigon, the capital of South Vietnam, fell in April 1975, effectively ending the war. Section 6. Legacies of War, Enduring Impacts and the Search for Healing. The Vietnam War cast a long shadow over both the United States and Vietnam. The war claimed the lives of over 58,000 Americans and an estimated 2 million Vietnamese civilians. In the U.S., the war left deep scars on the national psyche. It eroded trust in the government, fueled social divisions, and sparked debates about the use of military power that continue to this day. For Vietnam, the war brought unimaginable destruction and loss. The country was left deeply divided, and the process of healing and reconciliation has been long and arduous. The legacy of Agent Orange, a herbicide used by the U.S. military, continues to affect generations of Vietnamese. Despite the pain and division, there have been efforts at reconciliation and healing. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. stands as a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made during the war. The normalization of relations between the U.S. and Vietnam in the 1990s marked a significant step towards healing the wounds of the past.